Welcome back to the Unpatched Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler.
And I be Zach.
You do be Zach. Here at Unpatched, we share games and we also...
Wait, did you see that? FK. In the beer.
We're going to talk about a absolutely wild game today. I didn't have a chance to finish it once again. I still have that second job that's eating most of my time, but I'll be leaving that just in time for God of War. So that's exciting. I'll have time to actually finish God of War.
And Sonic Frontiers.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Which we will not be doing an episode on, but goodness, we will be playing it.
Yes, of course.
And I'll have time to play Callisto Protocol when that comes out.
I'm very excited.
And Pokemon, which is running at like 20 frames a second.
Yes, my sister-in-law has actually invited everyone who is going to buy Pokemon on launch day over to her house for Chinese takeout and just group playing Pokemon.
She didn't invite me.
You have been invited now because she told me to invite you, so...
Okay. That's fantastic.
Yes, it's a great idea.
That's great.
She's
I'm really happy
a very
about
smart
that.
person.
Yes. That's great. That's really great. But we're here to talk about Deadly Premonition.
Yes.
And
when will York be a Pokemon?
Yeah, or in Smash. Put York in Smash.
Dude, I would exclusively play him. Goodbye, Snake. We're just playing York. We'll discuss his moveset at the end of the video.
Okay. You will. So I only put about 5.5 hours in, maybe just slightly more, but he finished it. He couldn't put it down.
I literally could not put it down.
But we have here another Oktoberfest. We'll be doing 4 Oktoberfests. This is, October Rust, a Marzen-style fest beer from Adalbert's, the either recently or soon-to-be defunct Adalbert's, unless they have finally found somewhere else to go, but they are being kicked out of their current location.
Because Austin rent.
No,
I don't know
the property manager is turning the whole thing into something else, so everybody's being kicked out of that strip.
That's unfortunate, because there are a lot of good breweries.
Oh, no. Just right there in the building.
Oh, you're talking about that specific... Oh, okay.
Yeah, no way.
And I was like, Oscar Blues, all these people gone?
No.
Because that was a good little walking area, you know?
Yeah.
Celis White, Delbert's, Austin Beer Works, Oscar Blues, all of them
Austin
are right
Beer
there.
Works is right there?
Right there, yeah.
Oh, I should go. And
All right.
I should go back to Fairweather sometime.
Cheers. Clink.
Well, my hand's in the way. There we go.
Clink.
Dink it.
Okay. This one's definitely a little bit sweeter than the other ones.
It is quite
which
sweet.
Is very par for the course for Adalbert's, which is why they're not usually my favorite. But when someone tells me what beers they like, I can point them to this very often and be like, "You would like this."
It is pretty sweet. It's the sweetness is kind of detracting from the maltiness. There's a very particular, and you're better with words than I am, but there's a particular mouthfeel to a malty beer.
Yeah.
And I think this is missing it.
Yeah.
This
it does
is-
have the bitterness at the end, a little bit of roastiness, but not. It doesn't come together.
Yeah, I get the roastiness, but it doesn't feel like a malty beer, like an amber or something, a Shiner Bock. It doesn't feel like that in my mouth. Yeah, but it is sweet. I do get the roastiness, as you mentioned, and I like this is easy drinking, dude. Easy drinking.
Easy game.
Though I still think the first Oktoberfest that we tried, that imported one, I think that might be my favorite. That super light one that you could just drink like
that's
water,
right, that's
basically,
right, yeah.
but still had plenty of flavor there.
I'm excited for you to try Carl's Kolsch. I don't want to build up too much because it's just a Kolsch, but it's the best Austin example of a Kolsch.
If we're gonna bring something like a Kolsch or even the Pilsner, we should just bring multiple.
Yeah, just pound them.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you ready to discuss?
I'm not really. You're gonna take it away here. I'm gonna chime in when I can, but I just didn't have the same experience you did.
Sure.
The fullness
Which
of the experience.
I think is important to note that many people did not have the experience I did playing this game. But I think that if you played this back as a PS3 title, I think it's worth a revisit. So let's go over this game. So, short pitch. This game actually, literally yesterday, got a What Happened video on YouTube.
Oh, really?
Which I have not watched. So
wow, cool.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna watch that tonight.
You should watch that whole series, guys. It'll be linked in the
it's so good
in the description.
Yeah, Matt McMuscles. He's great. He just finished wrapping up a big series on the Friday the 13th movies too.
Cool.
That was good. Anyway, so this game is unprecedented in gaming. So bunches of games with huge, rabid fan bases, even some cult classics get remade. But a game that critically bombed, commercially bombed, is remembered as a not good video game, got not only a port, re-release, remaster on Switch, but got a full-fledged sequel. How many years after release? Like over 10.
Yeah.
It was 13 or something.
Quite a while ago. Didn't it come out in 2019?
Yeah,
2020
so 2007 I think is when the game initially came out. The first, I don't remember. So yeah, a long time. It's just unprecedented. This has not happened. Maybe someone could join the Discord and tell us, well, here's an example of this happening somewhere else. But on this scale, I can't think of anything that this has happened to.
And is it Swery that makes these?
Yeah.
Does he have any reason outside of this game and the attention that it's garnered to be sort of loved the way he is?
He has that one 2D puzzler with the teenage girl in it. I forget the name of that game. It's escaping me, but that did pretty well.
Oh, on DS?
Yeah, I think it was on DS or some sort of one of the handhelds.
Let's see. I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah, I forget the name, but that
like
did
Another Code, I think.
Yeah,
like
that sounds right.
Like the launch title.
Yes,
for DS.
It did very well.
It was one of like 4 games on the DS.
Sure, but also it did well critically.
Yeah.
He has a style. He has a tone that's very Twin Peaksy. Obviously,
maybe he is a little more creative than someone like Tommy Wiseau, but this game feels like just everything that has happened to the game. It's sort of cultural significance in gaming feels like The Room to me.
I think there's a similar heart, but there's definitely more talent involved than was involved in and that's not fair to say. There were a lot of talented people making The Room. It was kind of the directorial override.
Oh my goodness.
But in this case, there you can see genuine moments of brilliance, and the way we're going to break it down here as we near the second half of the conversation about the game, I think we'll show that. So it's an odd game, very Twin Peaks vibes on purpose. You might as well just be playing Dale Cooper.
No, this guy's an asshole. Dale Cooper is not.
No, I just mean like in terms of his role in the story.
Okay.
Yeah. Like he, big town guy with very odd methods shows up at a small town with a murder too big for it.
Yeah.
It's very much that. But you're right. York is a steamroller of a human. And just waits for everyone else to catch up to realize that he's right. It's very odd. He lacks the boyish charm of Dale Cooper. That's not to say I don't like York. I think York's a great character.
Yeah, he's definitely fun.
And it's nice that he's unique from Dale as well. It gives him... it gives you reason to keep playing the game.
There will be so many Twin Peaks references. If you have not seen Twin Peaks... the love for coffee that this character has, straight out of Twin Peaks, the way he sort of treats coffee as this like, it's a ritual.
Yeah, it's like, if reading Coffee Grounds, but without actually having the coffee grounds. It's just experiencing coffee in order to, see the future and discern.
You've got
what is happening.
The massive hotel, where can I find a hotel? Where can I find a place to eat and get coffee?
Massive empty hotel from like the days this town was a super big hub of logging commerce,
logging commerce as well.
Yeah, and like it's hundreds of rooms that you can run past. None of them open. You can run past every room, and only yours opens. You're the only person staying there until I think there's one other person. As you get into the game a little bit, but just huge. It's and the little old lady It's
She's
great.
funny.
It's great.
And then, of course, it being a logging town, and some rich white guy comes in and buys most of the town, owns
All the
the
town.
company.
The whole
Sure,
town.
the
He
whole
owns
town.
every house, every piece of land.
What?
So says Mr. Stewart, and it's great. So yeah, that's kind of the pitch, and we already discussed. It's a very odd legacy this game left. There's no other game that has this lasting effect, because even bad games that get memed don't last this long and don't get remakes and don't get sequels. It's very telling, I think, how this game is memed. So let's talk about So Bad It's Good. You and I both enjoy films that are so bad they're good.
Yes.
I think for me, I have here that movies, something intentionally bad is usually very bland. I think of like Asylum movies, Atlantic Rim, these kinds of things. Or something mediocre, I would argue, is worse than a bad movie.
Yes.
Watching.
We've had this conversation.
Some of these
a lot.
middling Marvel movies are like, I would rather be licking paint off a wall.
I'd rather watch Spiders 2, which you can watch on
Yeah.
Netflix, and I don't think it's a sequel to anything. I think it's just called Spiders 2.
It's incredible. It's part of the mystery.
Yeah.
Part of the mystery.
Yeah, like our missing episode 1.
And I think for me, the difference comes from the heart. There are probably genuinely good ideas there, even if poorly executed, or someone is genuinely interested in bringing something in this film to life.
Yeah. I can't remember if it is Nerdwriter, but there's a YouTuber. I'll link it if I can find it. The What Happened video will definitely link, but this one, Nerdwriter has a video about mediocrity, just mediocre movies, and why they are so much worse than bad movies. And I'll link that as well. It's a very interesting conversation and just something to think about. Like, yes, everything about Spiders 2 is worse than Iron Man 2. I would rather watch that than Iron Man 2.
Yeah, every day.
Every day. Yeah.
What a waste of Sam Rockwell and Mickey Rourke.
Yeah.
Wow. Just crumple them up and throw them in the garbage can. Why don't you?
Especially Sam Rockwell.
Oh,
I love that guy.
He's amazing. I love him. So yeah, I think that there's something there. We don't really have time to dig too deep into that, but I'm a huge Mystery Science Theater 3000 fan. Massive fan. And some of you might have literally no idea what that means. It's essentially a TV show that has run through the 80s, has been rebooted by Netflix a few times. It's literally this goofy, low budget prop and puppet sketch comedy. Like they start with a little sketch, and he's this guy trapped on this spaceship. These two evil scientists who force him to watch bad movies as part of a horrible experiment. And then he's silhouetted. You've probably seen this. This is pretty iconic. But he and his two robot pals are silhouetted against the movie, and you literally watch the whole slightly edited B movie with them, or Z movie, or whatever. And they just riff it. They riff it the whole time. And there's the creator's guy named Joel Hodgson. Incredible dude. Very innovative. This is his baby. He's fantastic. And he has this quote about what it's like to riff a movie. And he says, I think that the mistake a lot of first-time movie riffers make is this. They think we're here to demonstrate that bad movies shouldn't exist and that we're better than those movies. If we made a movie, we wouldn't make the same mistakes. But the truth is, it's really hard to make a good movie. I just think that because we do spend a lot of time with these bad movies, we actually end up falling in love with each one in its own unique way. Once you spend a couple of weeks in these movies, you just start to see things. And he's consistently, anytime someone says, oh, well, what's your least favorite movie that you've reviewed? He goes, I don't have one. I genuinely, unironically like these movies because I've seen them so many times preparing these riffs that I see the heart, I see the intention, I see the attempt, the heart, like the pumping, bleeding attempt to try to make this thing that they have in their mind real crash and burn,
Yeah.
But he sees it there and he falls in love with it. I think that is very emblematic of why this game has lasted.
Do you ever watch? Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. It is so strange that it has lasted, and it's difficult to pinpoint why. So I think that's as good of an answer as you're gonna get.
Yep.
I'm curious. Do you ever watch the movies? Because you've seen pretty much all of MST through K.
I've seen a lot, but a lot of it's hard to view nowadays. Well, they just launched a streaming service, so now you can watch a lot of them. But a lot of them are stuck in licensing hell. Like some of the Godzilla movies that they did and Gamera movies, like they just don't have the license to show those anymore.
Do you ever watch the movies by themselves?
I have watched some. So one of my favorites is called The Taming of the Killer Shrews was Taming of the Shrew. That's Shakespeare. The Killer Shrews, and it's literally just the creatures in the movie are literally just dogs with little like hoods on that look like rat faces. It's amazing. Some of the movies are genuinely just fantastic to watch, and I think that comes from rewatching them riff it so many times. Another one that we love to watch is called Call of the Wild, I think, or something like this. Call Wilderness. That's what it's called. It's one of the new Netflix.
Call Wilderness?
Yep. Call Wilderness. And it's a Sasquatch movie. It's incredible.
Now, is this Call Wilderness?
No, Call Wilderness. One
what?
break. It's very odd. It's very odd, as many of these movies are. But all that to say, yes, I do find a lot of enjoyment out of many of them. And some of them are movies that I watch actively, like the classic Gamera movies, Godzilla vs. Megalon, all these movies. Like Those are ones I just watch anyway and enjoy thoroughly. Some of those old Showa-era Godzilla movies get ridiculous. Godzilla starts jumping and dancing, signaling aliens. Like, it's just wild, dude.
The licensing is interesting because there's an overlay, both visual and audio, for the entirety of the movie, and it's obviously intended as a transformative work.
Yeah.
So why can't you get around that?
I think it's because of how much sequentially they are showing, and the audio is still there even if it's muffled, like if it's quieter. They're showing basically the whole movie.
Yeah.
You know? And so I can see, especially with someone like, Toho, would be pretty jealous of those IPs, especially because they're getting riffed.
Yeah.
So all that to say, I think that Mystery Science Theater has taught me a lot about how to appreciate stuff like this. Additionally, though, I think games, I can't think of another so bad it's good game. I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that you have to play the whole thing. And if the gameplay sucks, why would you keep playing it? And I think that what saves Deadly Premonition is the gameplay is incredibly easy, and you can run past huge chunks of the dungeons without fighting anything. I think that's a huge salvation to its lasting impact, because you don't really have to engage with that part of the game. I think the puzzle solving has its terrible moments, but like when you start doing your little what's it called? Not inventory, but when you start to do the profiling. Oh yeah, I have a good time, and it's just fun to walk around these environments.
Dude, oh my god, the animation every time you exit the profiling cutscene, he like takes a huge drag of his cigarette and like pulls to the side. He turns his head and blows out all the smoke, though there's never smoke.
Never.
There's smoke coming off the cigarette.
That's a good point.
So they can animate smoke. It happens. But during this huge exhale, because the idea is like while he's taking this massive drag, he's piecing everything together, and then he pulls away as the cutscene ends and exhales all the smoke. There's just none. It's like trying to be a cool moment, but it really fails.
And dude, anytime a character smiles, all immersion is broken.
Grotesque.
All immersion. We'll get there. I think that because. I wrote here that if the mechanics fall short, they have a lot longer to carry you than if the set design and character design and script fall short in a movie. Mm-hmm. You have to be carried 2 hours, or usually in a bad movie like an old B/Z movie, it's an hour and a half max, So it's really not that long. This game is 20-something hours.
Yeah.
It has quite a lot longer to carry.
Yeah, the gameplay, if it's really hanging on by a thread here.
Yeah. If it were difficult, I don't think anybody would play this game.
No. If it were difficult, they would not. And if there was just like anything else, any single additional annoyance, I think it would come crumbling down.
Absolutely.
It's
incredible
precariously balanced.
Inoffensiveness. Yeah, it's so precarious, and just this massive ball of inoffensiveness supports all the genuinely great things in this game, I think. I would agree with that. So, the ultimate question, one that I definitely have an answer to for myself. Is Deadly Premonition so bad it's good, or so good it's good? This is my question, and I think it's good.
I can't answer it.
I think it's good.
I didn't finish it, so I won't answer.
My first, we'll get into why later, but one thing that stood out to me is the memed moments are not the poor game design choices. I find that very interesting. The memed moments are the genuinely memorable, crazy, never been seen before in anything else moments, where you just go, "I'm sorry, what? You did? Who said? Why?" And you're just like the Sinner Sandwich. I think is the most memed moment in the
what?
The Sinner Sandwich. Oh!
I didn't make it to the Sinner Sandwich.
Oh, we're gonna have to look up the Sinner Sandwich.
Tell me about it.
It's basically, you know, the character Mr. Stewart, the rich guy who owns everything, who wears the mask. So he gets rolled in by his assistant, and so
I haven't met him yet.
So this guy, his assistant rolls around in a wheelchair, and he will whisper in his assistant's ear. And
yes, I did meet him.
And the assistant will rhyme and then finish like whatever is being said with, "So says Mr. Stewart." With everything, right? And so this guy rolls in, and you're at the diner with Emily, kind of flirting a little bit, and you're ordering food, and he's whispering in his manservant's ear, and the guy gives this little rhyme about like soon we will all have to pay, you cannot eat in bliss, and all this stuff, and he orders the Sinner Sandwich, which is like jelly and cereal and bread. It's his punishment to himself. And so he tells Francis, and he goes, "Mr. Francis York Morgan," every time. "Mr. Francis York Morgan." He tells him you should try the Sinner Sandwich. And so he goes, "You know what? I will, Harry," because of course he doesn't call him Mr. Stewart, he calls him by his first name. "I will, Harry. I'll have what Harry's having, please." And everybody gasps, and he eats this sandwich. It's like shown, it's just a JPEG of a sandwich on a plate, basically. He eats it. "This is incredible." And he is like genuinely enjoying this sandwich. It's very bizarre. It's a very crazy moment. And that right there, what I just did. That's pretty much sums it all up. It gets memed a lot, but those moments, because they stand out as a decision so few people would ever think to make, especially in that sequence of events. And so it's just something you can't get anywhere else, even in something like Twin Peaks, because Twin Peaks is well put together. You can follow it where you're supposed to. So I think that's very telling. One thing I brought up to you that I think is a very interesting point is, as we get further from the era of the PlayStation 3.
Yeah, this is an interesting point.
I find myself, like, when I go back and play an old PS2 game, my mindset is already in a forgiving mode, understanding where this came from. I'm not expecting a PS5 next-gen open world game. I'm expecting Ratchet & Clank on PS2. And I have a blast because I know the limitations of the time. I'm able to suspend that and really engage with the game for what it was as well as what it is. The best games should succeed on both, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. In this case, I go back, and I found myself very forgiving of some very stupid design decisions, but also considered I've seen these same stupid design decisions in PlayStation 2 games. Like, this feels like a PlayStation 2 game. And then I realized, how many PS3 games would I lump in with that level of forgiveness with just the PS2? Like, the further we get away, that line between those consoles blurs. And so people who played this game and were like, "This is not a next-gen game. How could anybody think this is a good game? It plays like an old, early PS2 game." And for us, we're just playing it. I'm playing it on Switch. If I didn't research it, I'd go, "Oh, maybe an old PS2 port or something." And I just forgive it immediately on a bunch of these little weird design decisions. It starts to matter less and less further away you get.
Unless it's a absolute juggernaut like Mass Effect. Like Mass Effect 1.
Yes.
So many unforgivable things in there. But came out right around the same time.
And that's why I think it's important that even an old game, when you have that level of forgiveness, there needs to be something that it still succeeds on in the present day.
I think this goes back to...
It's a lot like when I go back and play Kingdom Hearts and suspend even all the incredible amount of nostalgia I have for it, that game plays great. In fact, I would argue that game is the foundation of Final Fantasy VII Remake's combat system. Specifically Kingdom Hearts 2. The way it's balanced out, the way that you engage with the combat, the action combat, just is. And you play Kingdom Hearts 2 in particular, a 2005 game, and you play Kingdom Hearts 3, and you're like, this is just flashier too. Like, this still works. What you did still works, you know? But very few games are like that. There's usually an incredible amount of forgiveness you have to have for anything that old.
Yeah. And
not an incredible amount, but some.
You know, comparing it to, or not really comparing it, but bringing up Mass Effect in the same breath there.
That was
I think that goes back to what we were saying earlier about something that's mediocre and something that's bad. Like, this is coming from this is a Marvel movie equivalent of a game. This is one of the biggest blockbusters of the time, coming from one of the biggest studios of the time, and it just falls short in every way if you play it today.
Yeah.
It's just, I say every way. You know, it's got a few redeeming moments. You can go listen to us talk about it on a previous episode. But with this, yeah, it is just, you throw all of that out.
Well, it's like when when my dad and he would go, oh, this was one of my favorite movies growing up. Or like when I was younger. You're like, oh, let's watch it. And sometimes it's Mavericks. Great script, really fun. Or Silverado, great script, great characters, and you have a good time. Sometimes it's a movie that everybody loved when it came out, and you watch it and you're like, this sucks. This is terrible. Because you realize what it was doing was flexing the next gen-ness of that movie, flexing the effects, and it had no substance. I would argue a bunch of Marvel movies are going to have that effect in 20 years.
Or now
for some people. But I mean, even for the people who are eating them up right now. We'll go back and go, this has no substance. Now, that's not exclusively the case, and what it did as an overarching thing for the first time in movie history will last. I'm not going to discount that. Mm-hmm. But I do think that nobody is going to think highly of some of these movies that are getting 8, 9s, 10s. I mean, Black Panther, I don't get it. I get Killmonger. Killmonger's freaking awesome.
Bro, you seen the trailer for Wakanda Forever?
I have not. But
I have watched that trailer like 20 times. It looks like maybe one of the best non-Avengers movies.
Cool.
It looks amazing.
I'll give it a shot. But me watching Black Panther, like, it's very flat in many areas. Again, I'd say except Killmonger. Because Killmonger, again, is probably the best Marvel villain.
Yeah. And that's true of, like, any of the Iron Man sequels. 3 is fun. 3 is fun. Just crazy, stupid fun. I think the first.
I think Civil War will fall pretty flat.
Yeah,
I think
I still have fun with it, but
especially when you stack it up against like something like Infinity War, which is doing something very similar. It's just so much more substantive. The first
phase, aside from
Iron Man 1, everything except Iron Man 1 and Avengers is just so mediocre.
Yeah,
it hurts.
I don't want to watch any of them.
Captain America: The First Avenger is an affront.
It has always been one of my least favorite.
Versus Winter Soldier, which is like a top 3 for me.
Yeah,
that movie's
very,
fantastic.
Very good.
Dude, the elevator fight scene in that movie,
it's great.
It's so good. Or when he's like running the explosion app and he just tucks himself with the shield.
Cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I love watching Chris Evans punch things. I was just watching before I came here.
Watching Chris Evans punch things.
Dude, I just love Chris Evans, okay? I like watching him do anything. I like seeing him in a sweater in Knives Out. I like seeing his ripped fucking body as Captain America. Or I like seeing him be a homeless guy in Snowpiercer, which I just watched. I just love Chris Evans.
That's
okay?
fair. I get that. One of my favorite. We were watching RRR the other day, which is one of our new favorites. And there's a scene. There's a famous scene from Civil War where Captain America is like grabbing the helicopter and the building and like, flexing together.
It's amazing.
But there's a scene in this movie where he's holding two ropes to subdue a tiger, and he's pulling them together. And I was just in my head, "Eat your heart out, Cap!" Like I was like, "This guy's so cool." Yeah, it was good stuff.
And then Captain America gets a beard.
Yeah, dude. Infinity War Cap is so lovely, and of course Endgame. Dude, brings the hammer down. So good.
Oh my goodness, dude, that was so awesome.
So all that to say, like, there's obviously something substantive in a lot of these things, and it takes time and a specific intentionality to wade through something and find its substance, especially when it hits that hard and checks the right buttons, strums the right chords. I know Tyler and I don't agree on this, but many people still hold up the original trilogy of Star Wars because it is one of the best examples of the hero's journey retold in a modern tongue ever. It hits those beats so cleanly and in a way that is able to speak universally. Like every country in the world went and saw that movie and ate it up. It just has this universal language to it that surpasses any of its effects, which were all brilliant at the time. And some even now, like we still use some of those techniques from the original trilogy. And those things are great and they help the movies last a little bit, but that's not why people keep watching those movies.
Yeah.
Nobody is going to watch Rise of Skywalker ever again.
Yeah, or Avatar. Well, they'll see it because the sequel's coming out in December.
I won't.
And it got.
I'll see the sequel though.
It was in the theater again. Actually,
they're trying to pass that. Trying to pass that because Endgame re-released to beat Avatar. Yeah, so that they're re-releasing try to beat.
I am gonna see the sequel.
Oh, I will.
It looks.
I won't
gorgeous.
re-see the original, but
after watching that, I forget his name, but that video I sent you, the guy that talked about comfort games. He also has like a 40-minute dissertation on what exactly Avatar is or was and is, and it's interesting.
I'll have to watch that. That sounds great.
Yeah,
I'll watch it after I watch.
If nothing else, you'll
video.
Just get a refresher on everything about it.
Yeah, and so I think that would be worth analyzing more. I think is the divide between what a game was and engaging with it on that level, and what a game is or a media at all. I think that would be a worthy deep dive. I think it'd be fun to explore. And Avatar would be a great example. Mass Effect 1, like you said, all great examples to dig into. So let's get into the meat and taters.
Let's do it.
Of this
or
conversation.
As Williams says, the Pete and potatoes.
The Pete and potato. What a blessed human. So I have 3 categories here, all which have just vague general notes. I have the bad, the good, and the things that ride the thin line between brilliance and horrible decisions.
Okay.
So yeah, that's going to be most of this conversation, I think. Let's start with the bad, Tyler.
Yes.
The animations are repetitive.
They're beautiful.
I mean, beauty is in the... It's not. Beauty's not in the eye of the beholder.
We both disagree with that. However... there is something.
There is
very
a subjective
charming,
component. Yes.
There is something quite charming about many of the animations. I think.
Anytime they smile, that's like when the game wants to go full horror. All it has to do is make one of them smile.
Yeah.
That's the scariest thing I've ever seen personally. I literally stay up at night thinking of York's smile and
man,
contemplating death. It's one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen. And the animations are like simple and repeated. They're making the same 4 poses the entire game. Yeah. Even in like extremely stressful situations, they'll whip out their casual standing pose. And it's like
or when he's thinking, he tries to do this like Winnie the Pooh thinking thing, but he like taps his chest and looks into the sky.
And sometimes he does it just listening to someone.
Yeah.
And you're like, are you paying attention?
Well, probably not. He thinks so little of these people.
Yeah, he does. But he also does think highly of them. Like, he thinks highly of what they represent rather than who they are as individuals.
Yeah. The first time you go into a dungeon, the two characters that you're with, the two cops from the town, want to go in with you.
Emily and George.
And George, yeah. And they say, hey, we're going to go in there too. We're professionals. And he denies them entry to this dungeon, basically. And he says, he's talking to himself, this character in his mind called Zach. And he's like, wow, if they're professionals, then any first-person shooter player should join the SWAT team.
Whoa, yeah, dude, he's brutal. And it's great because you don't realize until maybe like 3 or 4 hours in that he is audibly speaking to this voice in his head, Zach. Like, he's not just... And other people hear him audibly speaking and going, what are you doing? And nobody questions it. That's the weirdest part, is nobody... Somebody might mention it, but nobody questions it until Emily, like, 17 hours into the game. So, who's Zach? She's like, oh, I knew you'd ask that question. Like, it's just like, how did you know? Nobody's mentioned it so far.
He specifically told them after this dungeon, hey, don't ask about Zach.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, they can hear you talking. That's weird. That's very bizarre. Why do you do that? It's very, very wonderful. QuickTime events can, in my notes that I wrote on my phone, suck my butt. These QuickTime events in this game are often out of nowhere. It feels like playing Resident Evil 4, and you're just in the middle of a cutscene watching this cutscene happen, and then you have to hit a QuickTime event. Oh, you paying attention? It's like, no, I was watching your cutscene.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I hate that. Like in Mass Effect 2, I've got 2 and 3, you've got this like 10-minute cutscene, and maybe that's an exaggeration for Mass Effect 2, but I'll put the controller down and like I'll get a drink, or I'll have a couple bites of my snack, and then a prominent choice pops up, but it's one of the QuickTime
timed ones. You're like, oh wait, no.
I'll restart an entire section because I missed a kiss with Liara.
Yeah, exactly. There's a worse, like, the worst moments of the QuickTime events are when you're being chased by anybody, specifically the Raincoat Killer figure, and you have to do this like weird shaking the analog stick back and forth thing, and you're running away from the Raincoat Killer. And then you have to like press dodge buttons, and some of them are super short. One, like the first one, is really long. That's a long time. And if you miss one, back to the beginning, boys. Or not one, but a few in a row, and it's back to the beginning. It's very frustrating. Was not my favorite.
There was a time where you had to, again in this first dungeon, you had to hide in a locker.
They do that 2 more times.
Oh my God.
Oh, dude, it's brutal.
So it's a very slow scene where he's... the axe killer is breaking down the door. You hide in something, a locker, under a bed or something, and as he comes by, there's multiple moments in this very long scene where you have to hold your breath, and then he'll walk past the spot, come up to another spot, you hold your breath, even if you're not in that spot. You just have to hold your breath every time he comes up to one of these spots,
and it's the same animation. Every time you successfully hold your breath, the King Killer like does a swaying look around motion, and York's like,
it's like holding his breath for like 3.5 seconds.
It's so dumb.
So it took me like 5 or 6 times to do that. I didn't hold my breath correctly the first time, and then I failed for a couple reasons, but a few of my failures were because I didn't know I had to let the whole thing play out.
Yeah.
I would hide and then
try to get out and run away. Yeah.
But then the cutscene starts where he's going to kill you, and he comes from the doorway. He's on the other side of the room. But the animation happens, he spawns at the doorway every time.
It's so dumb. It's one of the, it's terrible. The boring dungeons and simple easy combat. Again, the easy combat is a forgivable thing, I think, because it makes the game playable.
It gives you infinite ammo.
For your handgun. It's very bizarre.
And then you get headshots. You get like
and
this auto
melee
lock
weapons
headshots.
Kill everything in one hit. It's crazy.
Oh, really?
Like everything in one hit.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it saved so much time once I realized that. Just start wailing everything.
That's good to know. I don't know if I'll go back to this game. If I'm going to finish one of these games, I'll go back to Evil Within.
Yeah, please. Lots of obvious attempts at horror fall flat. Every time the peace sign shows up, the inverse like it's like trying to be a jump scare. It's like, dude, come on.
Yeah, one, it's not scary, and also it's not timed correctly for the jump to happen. It's very, and you just see it coming. It's
Yeah.
very silly.
It's very dumb. JPEG produce. So many little just obvious flat textured JPEGs.
Yeah.
Which for me I love. I just think it adds to this bizarre faux town vibe. The side quests are all trash.
Oh, I didn't do any.
That's a wise choice. They're all trash. Receiving them is fantastic.
Oh,
We're like talking with characters and getting them, like the rocker grocery store owner guy. It's like, yeah, dude, I found this treasure map. It's like supposedly some like old guy like died in the mines or something, dude. Yeah, and it's just like, what? Yeah, give it to me. Like, I'll go. And then it's just another dungeon or something stupid. But the real joy comes from just exploring the town. You can tell a man wrote every woman in this game.
yeah.
Oh, dude, like they all immediately fall in love with someone else. They're always like, "Wow, you're really emotional, aren't you?" Like it's so brutal.
Goodness.
There's one scene that I think shows genuinely good writing of a woman in this game, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
Don't want to die.
Oh, I actually really like that.
I love it too, but I get why it's bad. Like, I understand that having every zombie have the same death line that lasts, don't want to die. They like fade into the ground.
I genuinely love it.
I know, and every time we entered a new dungeon, Amanda's like, oh, come on. And I go, hey, Amanda, do you want to die? Because I'll tell you what, I don't want to die.
It's honestly kind of creepy to me.
Sure, and it's just the fact that it's repeated so literally every dungeon for the 21 hours you play this game. It's always don't want to die.
Yeah.
It's what they say as they die is incredible. There's one particular set that is the most egregious, but some of the puzzles take a long time to solve. There's a block puzzle in Mr. Stewart's house that takes forever.
Block puzzle, yay.
I think that for me, it's not even the problem as a block puzzle. I don't like that it's the gap between, you've talked about this, so I'm going to steal it from you, but the gap between identifying a solution and implementing it should be very brief. Like, when the player identifies the solution, they should be able to implement it quickly and efficiently. Mm-hmm. For example, I am playing Assassin's Creed. I identify a weakness in the enemy's ranks where I can kill someone and escape with a, whatever this or that tool. I then move over, implement that, which requires a little bit of skill. Great. It's a good challenge for the player. Get out, pull off my move. Maybe something else gets thrown in the wrench. Metal Gear Solid 5 is a great example, be able to think on your feet so fast, and showing your skill in that way. You should be able to identify the solution, implement it quickly. I think that's good game design, with very few exceptions. When I realize the solution to your block puzzle and only finish solving it 5 minutes later, you've made a terrible puzzle.
Yeah.
When I walk in the room, see the solution, which is literally just, oh, this one goes here, this one goes here, this one goes here, because I saw a plaque outside that told me. And now you have to push excruciatingly slowly every block into its place. You've made a terrible puzzle. Congratulations. Yes. There's a moment at the end that we'll discuss because I think it's a great moment. Unfortunately, it is not a dynamic choice. It's either do you shoot this person or not, and instead of giving you control of the gun, you just have a little up or down menu choice.
Okay.
And I'm like, dude, this would have been so easy to just make dynamic. And dynamic choices, we've talked about this, always better every time. Mm-hmm. There's never an exception to it, unless your game is just static entirely on purpose. Anyway, yeah. So that's the bad. Do you have anything else to add to the bad?
No.
That was pretty comprehensive.
Oh, driving. The driving is
what are you talking about?
Atrocious.
I love the driving.
And the fact that you have to get gas at a gas station that doesn't
the
open
one gas
until
station.
Noon.
There's one gas station in this game. It's incredible. And you take so much damage. One time I was driving up the hill and accidentally hit a wall, but something glitched and I hit the wall 50 times and my car just exploded. It was like, and I just exploded. I was like, what? It's incredible.
I did a backflip. I was just driving in it.
And you go so high. Like when the car physics go wonky. It's incredible.
Yeah, driving.
Okay, so I have the good now. Characters. Every single one has something worth hearing to say. Every single one stands out, have wildly unforgettable dialogue, and are more memorable than almost any other video game cast I can think of.
Okay.
I
like
cannot...
the old lady who thinks that
You're hitting on her?
Yeah, you like. There's this massive table,
Yes.
and she makes breakfast for you, and you both sit on either head of the table, but it's huge, and you can't hear her because she's talking so faintly, and you're trying to yell at her because she can barely hear you because she's ancient, and you suggest moving closer. And she doesn't, because even though her husband's not with us anymore, she still considers herself a married woman. She just doesn't want to engage in that. And honestly, it's a little funny that you want to engage in that.
Yeah. It's she's Polly, I think, is that her name?
Maybe.
Yeah. She's incredible. I really love all the main cast. I think George is so silly. And when he's revealed as one of the big bads, just all the sillier. He turns into an anime god. Like, it's just insanity. I love Mr. Stewart. He turns out to be like this, guy who has been impacted the same way that York has by this supernatural otherworldly killer, and has this huge data network of FBI records and stuff, and has compiled the lore of the game basically, and he's just speaks mostly entirely through his manservant. It's just wild, dude. Every character, and even the characters that are dumb, have something just worth saying. I love searching them out and just talking to them. What do you have to say today to me? The gun shop owner collects trading cards. It's just weird quirks like this that just...
Did you know the Safdie brothers are making another movie with Adam Sandler about like high-end collecting, specifically trading cards this time?
I'm very excited. I'm very excited for anything that they do together. Yeah, I love every character in this game. Every single one. I find that...
I hope they call it miscut cards. That would be great. Because miscut magic cards are very, very expensive. They're incredibly rare. And if you can get multiple cards on one cut, that's thousands and thousands of dollars. Miscut cards. Please.
Oh, the death scenes in this game have genuine gravity and develop very strange, like, resonant dialogue and imagery. I don't know. Did you get to the first murder after the one that brings you to the town?
I don't.
The bathtub one?
No.
So she's in the bathtub and she's like strung up, and all of these she's like silhouetted. There are all these kind of almost like torn wedding garlands, like drapes around her.
Okay.
And she's literally like nailed and strung up. Like it's very disturbing. Quick, cut her down. And, York's like looking around. He's like, no, stop. And it's funny because it should be like immediately happening, but George just keeps cutting. Like it takes like another full 60 seconds of York going, stop. And he just keeps cutting the thing. But he cuts her down, and all these drapes like cinch around her neck, and like she spills blood. Her tongue's been bitten out. Like it's just freaking nuts, dude. And there are all these like forest goddess imagery as well afterwards.
Okay.
What's his name? Mr. Stewart has a painting of all the women who are going to die in the game up in his house.
That's creepy.
Yeah, it's lots of really cool little moments. I showed you Diane dying, which she's like literally sputtering blood, like unable to fully form words because her tongue is out, talking about wanting to be penetrated by this massive statue behind her, as if she's just giving an art gallery tour. It's very bizarre.
Yes, yes, it is.
It sticks with you. But
crazy.
I think, like, despite how silly it is, like, there's genuine gravity there, like, and they deliver an emotional scene, in a very unique way that I have never seen before. So whether, and we'll get to this at the very end, I wonder if whether it's intentional or not matters.
Okay.
I think that's going to be worth talking about as we reach the end here. But the music.
Oh, the music is great.
The music is fantastic. The main theme, obviously, with the whistling.
Yeah.
The one you mentioned, the like scraping trombone kind of,
Yeah.
or trumpet. I forget, whatever it is.
Whatever horn it is.
Yeah.
That just screeches in very briefly. I really like that. Whenever something creepy is happening, or something is being revealed to the player, that's when it comes in.
There's this silly like little like kind of bohemian, like I don't even know how to describe it, funky beat that plays in literally only one section where you're playing as Emily and you're following the dog Willie to try to find where
that's really weird.
It's very weird, but it sticks with you. It's this musical track that like I will never forget now. It's very bizarre. There's a sequence at the end of the game where you play as the Raincoat Killer back in the, I think it's 80s. I forget when, but in the past. And, you know, you're playing the guy who murdered a bunch of people in this town. And when all the people in the town went crazy because of this gas that was released, it's the plot gets crazy. But you're just running around as a Raincoat Killer. You can one hit kill all the innocent civilians. And once you realize the goal is to get to the clock tower, and you're just killing these civilians, it just starts playing literally the entirety of Amazing Grace, sung by a woman, no instruments accompanying it. It's wild,
crazy.
And it lingers with you because you're like, this works in a weird way. Like, should it work? I don't know, but it's working for me. It's great. The environments I was talking about this earlier. When you go in the wood mill and you come across this altar with this mannequin on it and these giant bloody like umbrella drapes like spun around this knife hanging over this mannequin's body, but then just like, you know, rough patchy couches like circled around it, just crappy couches you'd find like in a junkyard or yard sale, just sitting as if people were just sitting there spectating whatever was happening there in these crappy David Lynch couches. It's just genuinely like that was a good idea to put that there and design it like that. That sticks with me. The clock, I like the clock in the game, like the time having to.
It's so slow.
It's so slow. I think on purpose.
It's like almost real time.
Yeah, I think it's on purpose though, and you can smoke to pass the time.
Yeah, and you can go to sleep as well, which then makes you very hungry.
Yeah, we should put that under bad. The eating and drinking and sleeping mechanics.
Yeah,
just literally adds nothing to the game.
And you have to fully go into the pause menu to view it.
Yeah, and of course the pause menu music when you go back in the pause menu, ding, 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 every time you go back. The final moment with Emily. And kind of the culmination of like realizing that this is not going to have a happy ending and that you're not going to get the girl and she's going to die, and she rips a tree that has been planted in her stomach out of her stomach and bleeds all over the floor. You're like, oh, I'm genuinely sad about that. Like, you made me care enough to where I didn't want that to happen.
Yeah, I already kind of liked Emily.
Yeah, it's like, oh,
she's the only sane person.
Yeah. And you kind of feel like once that moment hit, I realized how much the game had its hooks in me. Where I was like, even Amanda was like, I don't like this. Like, this makes me feel icky and sad. And I'm like, yeah, it does. Why? Like, you know, why though? It's very weird. But it's and again, the imagery, like just this little red tree sprouting out of her stomach and ripping it out. Like it's really graphic. And despite the silly, you know, poor rendering of it.
Yeah.
The idea
is very
it lasts much longer than the actual playing of it on the screen. You know?
Yeah.
My favorite thing of the gameplay I think works, is the exploration of the town and the navigation. You can literally navigate by landmark alone. The map does not pull very far out so that you plot out your whole route. You kind of have to keep pulling it up. It takes
a while to learn, though.
It takes time. Yeah, you really have to learn it. And I was bummed because there's a part late in the game where you're given a riddle. Find this place in this little riddle. And I thought they were going to... And I figured it out. They told me the riddle, and I explored the town so much. I was like, that's the graveyard. I knew it. But then you leave, and the cutscene tells you it's the graveyard and puts it on your map. I'm like, this would have been perfect. You've already been encouraging me to spend so much time in this town and get to know it. Reward me for knowing it, you know? Outside of just the fun of talking to these crazy characters and finding out where they all live and stuff.
Yeah.
But the town's so well designed. George, you know, becomes one of the major villains at the end of the game, and his house, if you go and find his house on your map and drive to it, has a giant red tree planted in the yard and is covered in red ivy. Like, the game's telling you this guy is the bad guy from the very beginning. The environmental storytelling is there, and it's really good. You meet his, like, I think it's his mother. It's his mom who abused him growing up, and she's literally covered in red vines, and the tree has burst out of her stomach, and it's just...
If you find this before it's intended...
Well, you can't go in and look at her yet. You can't go into his house.
But you see the tree?
You see the house and the tree and all this stuff, yeah.
So, for seeing this, is there any sort of dialogue that happens? Or any new, dialogue choices?
No, there's no dialogue choices. York doesn't pick up on it, but you as the player do. I think intentionally, because it's like the second to last thing revealed in the game is George is the bad guy.
Yeah.
Many of the locations are meaningless as well, though. Like, you'll drive past them, you can't go in them, they're nothing. But I was like, this is what it's like driving through any town. Like, there are a couple things that stand out to me that I would go to, and the rest is just things I don't even think about.
But also for towns like this, which have driven through and lived in many, they probably are empty.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That bank has probably been closed for 20 years, or the gas station or whatever.
Yeah,
it's not that they just didn't render it.
Did you ever bribe him at the gas station?
No, I didn't meet him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm like so I'm waiting to go to the town hall meeting.
Oh yeah, where you meet everybody. It's a great moment.
Yeah, I would like to see that through, but it's like 7:30, and I woke up an hour ago in real time at 7. The time is so slow. So I just get in the car and I'm driving around. I went to a couple houses. I went to the gas station, but it's closed.
Yeah, if you go there and he doesn't talk to cops. I don't talk to cops. You know, he's just a gruff dude. But you can give him a $100 bill and he goes, "Hey there, Benjamin. Got something to tell you." And then he'll so then a little text box will pop up with like a hint, but it's there for literally 1 full second and then it's gone. So I had to start taking screenshots because, like, I can't read that in time. Like, what do you... And he doesn't ever repeat it. You can't pay him again to get the information again. It's just gone forever.
Wow.
I also had so much money in this game.
Oh, yeah.
I never had any reason
to
spend it.
This is the bad.
Yeah.
Collectibles and items.
Oh.
We didn't talk about that.
Oh, yeah.
Everything you do in the game, you can just talk to someone. You can peek in a window. You can kill an enemy. Everything you do, you get money for. And this giant prompt comes up telling you how much money you got for it. And then your entire balance ticks up that much. It makes like a cash register sound. It's the most intrusive. It's the second most intrusive.
Because anytime you pick up an item, it plays, and you can skip it, but it plays a full like 3 second like rotation. Yeah, you can press start. It'll skip it. I realized that halfway through. It changed my life.
Oh, okay.
It's just so bad. They're going for that Resident Evil 4 thing.
And then also when you kill things, or you're just exploring, there are giant floating medallions that you can pick up.
It's so silly.
Yeah, like that's PS2
they give you
era
what is it?
BS.
What is it called? It's called like Hero.
It's an Agent Honor.
Agent Honor.
You're picking up badges or pins from other agents.
So silly.
Yeah, it's really really dumb.
Okay. Things that ride the thin line between brilliance and horrible decisions.
All right, take it away, man.
The writing. The writing, like we've talked about, has consistent themes and imagery. There's a moment where he's talking about when he was a kid, he played a red tree in the school play. Like these little moments scattered throughout that like build towards the core themes of the game. I genuinely want to know what happens next at pretty much every moment. You talked about George's house already. Here's one of my favorite quotes in the whole game. Entropy. The world exposes everything and causes chaos. Just like this coffee. What?
Wow.
Just incredible.
That is Dale Cooper stuff right there.
Exactly. So there's a moment, I brought this up earlier, where Emily and you, go out to meet up with George at a bar and you have this heart-to-heart. And then Emily shows up all dressed up in a full dress and everything, and George is like, "Oh, I gotta go somewhere." You know, he's obviously going to become the bad guy, but in this moment, he's just peak wingman, and he leaves, you know, and lets you two flirt and stuff, and you talk and get, you know, and you leave. And she shows up like tipsy at like 3 a.m. at your hotel room, and just there's no like sexual encounter or anything. She just sits on the couch, and you two just start talking about your past and your life and stuff. I'm like, I've literally been there in that moment like 3 or 4 times in my life with different people. That has happened in that exact same situation. It's the one time Emily's written like an actual human and not, this is what girls are like, you know, from a 15-year-old boy's perspective. I was genuinely surprised. And the whole scene is odd and deadly premonition-y, but genuine. I believed what was happening in the scene. Now, this, of course, clashes with moments where nothing makes sense and the story is just a ripoff of Twin Peaks, or when it goes full video game and George becomes an anime god. I think, personally, it leans closer to brilliance in most moments, but there are just too many to overlook of this is just dumb. This is just dumb. There's no thing that I can twist in my mind to make this a good decision. This is just terrible writing in this moment. It's ridiculous. The tonal whiplash, I can't decide as if it's a good or bad thing in most situations. So, for example, 2 examples. One is the autopsy scene, rip off from Twin Peaks pretty much wholesale, but very well done. It's poorly animated. There's odd cuts. The music choices are at odds with both the timing and tone of the moment, and I'm enjoying the scene. I can't look away. I would watch. It's not something that I was just, you know, watching a train wreck. Like, I would watch it again actively. Something is working there. Could I tell you what? No, I have no idea. I think my favorite moment of this is, you know, you, George, Thomas, and Emily all sitting at the diner talking. And they're like, "Oh yeah, I worked on this case and stuff like this," and you know, and then the music cuts, and York is like, "Yeah, I was working on a serial killer case. You know, murderer was sexually abusing these women," and talking about stuff. And halfway through his monologue, oh,
I love that, because that time it's intentional.
Yo, I feel like
it's drowning him out, because he's not a professional on the same level as York and Zach.
Yeah.
So it's intentionally drowning him out there. I did really like that moment.
And it's weird too, because like you get that for him this is nothing, you know, but like for everybody else is like genuinely horrified and scared of what's being said. It's a great moment. It's a really good moment. But again, it's tonal whiplash. It's very odd, and sometimes that works in stories, and sometimes it doesn't.
Wait. You said when George is
when York.
Okay, there's a moment early on when George is saying something, trying to like gain some credibility. Yeah,
I remember this.
And it just drowns him out to that silly music.
I'm talking about where York is describing like these horrible murders and stuff, and like having to solve like, you know, 50 women dying or something, and that music comes in and everybody's like horrified, but the music's just saying, for him this is just da 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 da. It's a very good scene, but again, tonal whiplash, like it's very jarring. And it's sometimes hard to tell if that's...
Maybe I'll just watch. I don't have the time to play it.
Just watch it.
Yeah, I'll just watch it. It's a wild time. The gameplay is not very good.
Yeah.
So I can just...
I like driving. I like exploring the town. I love the format of the town.
Dude, the car is terrible.
It's so hard. And this should go under... Actually, I have it here. Driving just WTF. Under brilliant or terrible, and you can buy, I told you this, you can buy like a muscle car, like the fastest car in the game, and the same song plays from the same starting point every time you get in the car. It's this kind of metal,
the doom music drops every time you get in the car.
Every time you get in the car. And so when I'm playing with Amanda, I'd go, "Hey, Amanda, you want to hear my favorite song?" I'd get in the car. And you eventually, it becomes meaningless. Like, the song becomes meaningless. It's wild. I really don't know how to feel about the final 2 bosses. Or the final 3 bosses. Really the only bosses, I guess, in the game. You got a cross-dressing person... jumping in cogwheels and swinging at you on giant metal hooks. It's a very uncomfortable boss
Why are
fight.
the hooks there?
I don't know. It makes no sense. Then you have George becoming an anime villain, and you have Forrest Kaysen being a actual demon from another world. It's just wild. It's insane.
None of those bosses, because we looked at all three of them before we started. None of them look as bad. For some reason, I'm remembering, and I hate that this is happening to me right now. I'm remembering a boss from Rule of Rose that pukes poison all over the floor.
Oh, yeah.
And then goes up in the ceiling and will
The mermaid.
Yeah, the mermaid. This is not a good game.
I'd play this over that any day.
I'd try it one more time.
I'm glad for you.
I would give it one more try.
Fishing.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Did you fish ever in this game? So there's a part where it's mandatory. You have to fish for a briefcase with important FBI documents in it.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Or, local police station documents in it. And he's like, we need to go fishing. Like, he looks at a coffee cup that Emily brings him, and he's like, we need to go fishing. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, the documents are in the waterfall. And it's like...
It's Twin Peaks nonsense.
It's incredible stuff, dude. And so he goes up and you fish. Well, it's a little mini game. So you catch you hook the fish, and then there's this like rolling like selection of what could happen. You can get a fish, you can get a piece of scrap. The failure icon though is just Emily's face gasping. It's so dumb. Like but I want to fish all the time. And of course you start fishing. Like it's really satisfying. So yeah, we pretty much covered everything in this game.
Okay.
And so I wanna pose one important question brought up earlier. Does intention matter to the final product?
I don't think there's a consistent answer there.
I would agree with you.
I think here, no, but it's hard to say what exactly is intentional and isn't.
I think when I play the sequel, I might have a better answer to what was intentional and what wasn't.
Oof, dude. I hear that sequel is rough.
I've heard it's
worse
rough.
than this.
Yeah, I'm excited because we'll see someone trying to rebottle that lightning,
and watch it just flounder completely.
Fizzle out, yeah. So I think that'll be the best part about playing that game. I watched the intro cutscene. It's wild. it's wild.
I want to see it.
No,
I don't think it matters all the time. I think it matters plenty, but not all the time.
It matters to external things. It matters to the credibility of the artist. It matters to the to what kind of input they have.
Yeah, I don't think that's what I didn't interpret the question like that. I mean,
no, I disagree. I agree with
for my enjoyment.
Yeah.
Or any consumer's enjoyment.
Like if the artist intended something totally different and I walked away, like there's a difference between me reading Winnie the Pooh and saying, "Oh, this is about sex. Is about incredibly violent BDSM." It's like, oh, okay, you're welcome to walk away with that, but you are wrong to have done that. You put way too much of yourself. You at that point are not engaging with the text. I think that everyone should walk away with something different. I think that eisegesis is just as important as exegesis. What you bring to the text versus just what the text alone is saying. But you need enough room for the text to still speak to you to have a valuable interaction with that piece of art. In this case, though, I think I agree with you. Where in the case of this game, it doesn't matter because what ended up happening became bigger than anything it could have intended to be. And so I think all of the best art is that way. It's funny to talk to an artist about what their favorite piece that they ever made was versus what the public's general consensus of the best piece is. It's almost never the same. Like very rarely. Mm-hmm. You have like the occasional insight of one author going James Joyce. I'm going to write Ulysses. It's going to change the world. He's so arrogant, but wonderful. He looked outside of his window one day and he turned to his friend. He's like, "You see that child out there? One day he shall be reading Ulysses." Like he's just like very arrogant, but he was right. That book is the most dissertation-y, I don't know what the word is, book ever written for the fiction world. Like, he was right, but that's very rarely the case. Usually an artist is...
I think music is probably the best place to look for this answer.
Interesting.
There are plenty of times where a song is like, for some reason, Man in the Mirror just popped into my head. It's very clear what that song is saying, what it wants you to take away from it. There is a clear intent with that song. But if you listen to something like two of my all-time favorite songs, Dweller on the Threshold by Van Morrison and Invisible Empire by Katie Tunstall, I take away very particular things from those songs, and I'm not totally sure if that's what it means. Dweller on the Threshold, I'm a little more convinced of my own interpretation. But Invisible Empire, I've been listening to that song for a few years now, and I've always interpreted it one way that was very important to me. And listening to it just recently, like 2 weeks ago, I started to hear where maybe my interpretation is not correct, but that doesn't matter at all. Because it's not something like Man in the Mirror that is clearly saying a thing. It is there for you as the viewer, the listener, the reader, to have an experience with it.
Some of my favorite stories are the ones where the author does not know what they're trying to say themselves, where they're doing as much exploration as you. It's like reading Moby Dick. Moby Dick does not have a lesson, a thing you learn. There's no, don't take revenge. Like, that's obviously not what he's talking about. He might not even be entirely sure what he's talking about, you know? And I think that makes it last so much more, because he's speaking to questions that don't have answers and that everybody's going to bring their own experiences to and lift up that book higher than it could have ever been on its own. I love Moby Dick. I bring it up all the time. Moby Dick and Winnie the Pooh, both masterpieces. Absolute masterpieces.
Yeah, I was thinking of after we're
Nick
talking
sent me a quote
about...
from Winnie the Pooh and I started crying the other day. I was just like, dude, these books. What were you saying?
Yeah, I kind of want to read them. I've never read Winnie the Pooh.
They're very funny.
And I told you that I picked up those fairy tale books, the Hans Christian Andersen and the Brothers Grimm books.
Yeah.
But I've also got these sitting on the same shelf, the Winnie the Pooh box set.
Send me the editions you got of those, by the way. I need to buy those.
Yeah, they're $40 each, which is so reasonable. They're gorgeous.
Yeah,
amazing.
Let's do it. Okay, yeah, I like that answer. I think that it's a very complicated one. I think when it comes to something as interactive as a video game, I think that there's a lot of room for intent not to matter versus almost any other medium, because of how much the player is expected to bring to the table. I think that leaves a lot of room for intent to matter much less.
Yeah,
and when you get something like a nonfiction piece intended to teach a lesson, like maybe a sermon or a political speech intended to deliver a specific message, obviously there is no room for intent not to matter anymore. Intent needs to matter. Like, the exception would be, reading an old speech from Richard Nixon and now being analyzed for its incredible effectiveness in its lying, or something like that, or its incredible effectiveness as a piece of rhetoric, rather than what it was intentionally trying to do originally. That's very abstract, though. Like, in that moment, it is meant to be heard a specific way, and that intent comes through.
I'm interested in what you said a moment ago about video games, the interactivity affording way more space for intent not to matter than maybe something like a movie. And I don't know if this is totally relevant to what you're saying, but I think about Hotline Miami. It's very clearly saying it's delivering a specific message. It opens, do you like to hurt people? And let's explore that. However, for the 4 hours that I'm playing that, there's nothing else I would rather do than hurt people. It is so fun, and the intent might have been to make you think about that, but it is such a good time. Which might be the intent.
I'm sure it is.
But, obviously having the good gameplay is the intent. But making you think about how, grotesque your actions are, that seems to be the intent. I don't think the intent is for all of that to melt away and you to just not think about it.
Yeah, that's fair.
I have a feeling that's not the intent, but that is what happens.
And
because it's fantastic.
And there's this thing where video games love to point out how violent you are, especially in like PS3 era. And I wouldn't lump Hotline Miami in this category, but I think it's a little arrogant. And let me explain. This is a little off topic, but I think it's a little arrogant to make that point because even though, yes, I am engaging with this and committing violence virtually, I am a person with the ability to distance myself from what is happening. And you hear the horror stories, the ones that were always put in the news of, the horrible murder that happened because of Halo or this or that, which on a mass scale are so small. The majority of human beings in the world have the capacity to read, watch, or play something and distance themselves from what's happening, to recognize this as a video game and that it is meant to be fun. Sure, the fact that we are presenting killing other humans as a fun thing is interesting. It's an odd thing that we're doing. Like Call of Duty in particular. Like, these are just humans in war and you're shooting them and it's supposed to be fun and you get points. Ching, ching, ching. It's odd. Like, I'll admit that. But to say that I lack the ability to distance myself from that as a video game experience, I think is a little bit short-sighted and insulting. Again, I think it'd be more interesting to talk about why are we making this at all in the first place? Like, that's way more interesting of a question to me than look at you engaging with this. What a horrible person you are,
Yeah, we'd have to talk about all media on that level to have that conversation fairly. It's totally disingenuous to just point at one thing. You'd need to talk about violent movies. You'd need to talk about violent music, of which there is so much.
Video games get the special tick, though, for its interactivity.
Yeah.
But so I get that. But there are movies that revel in their violence. And watch Kill Bill.
And I
it
would
is fun
argue
to watch her cut people's heads off.
Yes. And I would argue that people that don't play games don't get this. But the interactivity allows for more disconnect because you're not being preached to. If the intent is to indoctrinate the viewer, listener, or player, the fact that it's interactive allows you to bypass that. Like in Grand Theft Auto, you can follow traffic laws and you can shoot hookers. And people talk about shooting hookers being Grand Theft Auto. But you can watch, I don't know, I'm drawing a blank right now, it's just popping into my head. But, if you were to watch a movie that is about shooting hookers, there's nothing, you cannot circumvent that at all. You can turn it off, sure. But if that's the media
but those are the two choices.
Yes.
Versus the myriad.
I can go play tennis and follow the traffic laws and on my way home from tennis, get a car wash in Grand Theft Auto. If I'm watching, Dahmer, I don't have a choice of not watching him kill people and preserving penises or something.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet.
Mummified penises.
Anyway, I would actually argue that passive media is worse in that regard. I wouldn't make this argument at all, but if I were to defend that would be my argument.
Interesting points. I think that this all came out of Deadly Premonition. We're talking about Deadly Premonition, and it generated these kinds of discussions. What? That's testament to how good of a game this is.
It's a very interesting video game, for sure.
There's nothing like it. I would recommend anyone give it a try. It is not for everyone. It is not something everyone's gonna have a patience for, and I totally get that. And this is not gonna be everybody's vibe, but it's my vibe, and I want to share that vibe with you. For me,
bro, you vibing right now.
My vibing right now. I'm so young.
Also so white.
Last thing I wrote here. At the end of the day, it was surprisingly difficult for me to say goodbye to Greenvale. Wow. I felt like I was letting go of something special that I had a unique relationship with. I can't wait to try the second game, see if there's anything there that has any remnant of what this game had to offer. I would never put this I wouldn't, swing the pendulum far enough to say, this is one of the 10 best games I've ever played.
But one of the better games you played this year.
Easily. And one that I will be recommending to many people down the line. I think that there's a lot here that is worth engaging with. So I'm very grateful for the experience.
Awesome. I'm definitely gonna watch it. I'll finish it. I don't have time, unfortunately, to play it, but I've sort of gotten everything that the gameplay is going for.
Yeah,
so
you don't.
I
Yeah.
will. I'll just watch it and have a good time and do it in half the time because it'll be some professional that's on his 8th playthrough.
Crazy people.
Yeah, yeah. So it'll be a good time. It'll be a good time, like Metal Gear Solid 4. So I'm actually glad I didn't play that game. It was so fun to watch.
Yeah, I
was glued to my screen. I'd be doing chores, and I'd like sort of set it in the background, and it'd be 4 seconds in, and suddenly 3 hours have passed. I was supposed to do chores.
Yeah, you're just watching.
Yeah, but I'm still standing in the kitchen. Like I didn't move to the couch or anything.
Exactly.
I'm still standing there.
I've been there, dude.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I'm glad you enjoyed this game so much. Definitely 10 out of 10 for Zach, it seems.
Not quite, but yeah, it's one of my.
It's way up there.
It's a game I think will go down as one of the quote unquote favorites. That big list of 50 that just exists abstractly.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I wrote out a lot of my things that I call my favorites. There's about 40 games that I consistently seem to call these are my favorites. So
yeah, I've got a list of 30.
Yeah. I just I have a solid top 10, that I could actually, but that's no fun. Just actually making an itemized list to share with someone. Just go, dude, that's one of my favorites. That's so much more. It opens discussion so much better. It emphasizes how much I love a vast amount of things. Sure, it can limit how much what favorite means. If you say it that often, but I think I've found that it opens more gateways for cool, interesting discussion than it closes. So,
okay,
personally. And yeah, if it comes down to it, I can give a list of these are my 10 actual favorite games definitively,
Yeah. Hotline Miami's on that list for me.
Dude, yeah.
That short list.
That's such a good game.
So good. Anyway, folks, we are almost finished with our, horror, our October coverage. We've got one more episode coming up next week with Scorn, just released a few days ago. Unfortunately, some things fell through. It was going to be this week's episode to give me some more time with...
I think I think on Steam, Scorn should be described as its primary genre, squishy.
Squishy, yes.
I just squishy or squelchy.
What a moist video game it looks to be. We don't need to do that. Nope. But we'll be playing a new horror game, which we don't often do. Though, wait, have we done that every year? Play one new one? I know we did Amnesia the first year. What did we play?
That was fun. Yeah, that was. I think about that game more often than I thought.
So do I. I actually love the second Amnesia. It's very, very good.
I wouldn't say I love it, but I find myself thinking about it more often than I thought I would. It comes nowhere close to me to Dark Descent for me though.
Really,
nowhere close. I think
Dark Descent's very good. I couldn't tell you what it is because it pops into my head pretty often as well.
I like the ending a lot.
Yeah.
The theme of motherhood is unexplored in a lot of
the matches
games.
Are cool.
The matches are cool. Yeah, we talked about the matches.
I also really like the alien.
The sci-fi stuff.
Yeah, but it's like the aliens that were helping ancient societies.
Yeah.
Because they have a bunch of ruins or artifacts rather from Egypt and Greece and just a bunch of ancient societies. Anyhow, what did we play? A new game. Did we play a new game last year?
We'll have to look at the episodes.
Anyhow, yeah. We don't do it often, but a new game with Scorn. And then we'll be wrapping up the year with a couple of games we've really been itching to play, including finally Uncharted 4. But folks, check out the link in the description for those 2 videos we mentioned, and a link to Discord if you want to come play Risk of Rain 2. I'm always down to play some Risk of Rain 2, but we've been playing a lot of Overwatch 1.5 maybe, or as Girlfriend Review said, Overwatch 2 as in TOO, Overwatch also. Dude, their review is pretty funny. Anyway, if you need a party, come join the Discord and come tell us why you also love Deadly Premonition. You'll find that link in the description. No Patreon here. Just come join the community.
The medium.
Ah, yes, we played the medium last year. Okay, so it's a trend. We play one new one a year, basically. But don't forget, folks, to share what you love with who you love.